behalf of this evening's co-hosts, the Sauk Prairie Education Association and the Sauk Prairie Optimist Club, welcome to this evening's School Board Candidate Forum. My name is Dennis Berta, and in addition to being the lead pastor at River Hills Church, I'm a former member of the Sauk Prairie School Board and share with you a keen interest in education and in education issues within our community. Thank you for the opportunity to moderate tonight's conversation. The philosophy of the board, as stated in Sauk Prairie School Board's Constitution and bylaws, says that recognizing that the faithful nurturing of children today promotes a society of productive citizens tomorrow, it shall be the philosophy of the Sauk Prairie schools that education be child-centered, and toward that end we dedicate the human and economic resources of our community. As you all know, that our schools make up the single largest share of our tax bill, and some of you are here in terms of economic issues. Some of you are here because your children or your grandchildren are a part of the schools. Some of you just are here because education is important to you. And in any case, we are glad that you're here, and we look forward to the dialogue which will ensue. Our time here together is limited this evening, so let me share the ground rules for this next hour. These rules will ensure that I'm allowed to direct as many of the questions as possible to our candidates while providing a fair response time for each of them. The purpose of this forum is the civic education and engagement of the school district's citizens. And so both the Sauk Prairie Education Association and the Sauk Prairie Optimists want to remind candidates they must present themselves respectfully to the moderator and to each other, to the live audience, and to the audience watching at home via our live stream. Audience members, you're asked to remain quiet except after the candidates' opening and closing speeches, at which point you may applaud. Cheering and particularly jeering during the remainder of the evening is not acceptable. And audience members will be asked to leave and advised to watch the remainder of the forum online if they behave poorly. Second, a team from two co-hosting organizations are here this evening and have been busily reviewing your submitted questions and will present those questions to me. In order to avoid repetition and cover as much ground as possible, the team may combine and or clarify questions. You'll also have the opportunity to see those questions on screen. Third, a member of SPIA, the Sauk Prairie Education Association, is our forum timer this evening, and candidates will see a green light as they start to answer a question. The yellow light will alert them when their time is almost up, and the red light lets them know that their time, their 90 seconds, is expired. We expect candidates will respect our time limitations, but we reserve the right to cut off a microphone if a candidate ignores the timer. 4, candidates will have 90 seconds to make an opening statement and 90 seconds to make a closing statement at the end of our time together. 5th, each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. If in their answer a candidate directly addresses one of our other candidates by name or obvious description, like Rich is wearing the guy in the black sweater, their opponent will have the chance for a 30-second rebuttal. I alone am the arbiter of whether this extended time is warranted. I like that part. 6th, the forum will end between 8 and 8:15 p.m., after which the candidates will stay for an informal meet and greet. If you have a question that did not get answered during the forum, you may wish to visit with the candidates at that time. Before we begin, please stand as you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance . And now let me introduce our evening's candidates as they appear on the ballot. First, for the Sauk Prairie School District School Board member, villages of Prairie du Sac and Sauk City, we have Nick Franciscovich. Nick?
Thank you.
And we also have, for that same seat, Rich Judge. For the Sauk Prairie School District member representing the village of Merrimack, towns of Caledonia, Merrimack, and West Point, we have Jim Isaacson. And representing the towns of Franklin, Honey Creek, and Troy, we have John Hutchins. John? The candidates have drawn straws. And Mr. Judge drew the 2.5-incher. Everyone else drew a 3.5-incher. So, Rich will start us out this evening, and then what we will do is we'll just go right down the row. The opposite order will be followed by for the closing statements. So, Nick, you'll have the opportunity to begin those closing statements, and we'll work our way down. Thank you again for your presence here this evening. So, with that, let's begin with our first questions. Let's not begin with our first question. Let's begin with
I'd like
Rich
to buy
Judge.
a ball. Hi, my name is Rich Judge. I'll be, as Dennis mentioned, I'm running to represent the district that covers the villages of Prairie du Sac and Sauk City, but of course in our school district, people vote district-wide, so everybody gets to help select and be a part of that process. I live in Prairie du Sac. My wife and I have 3 children, 2 of whom are still students at Sauk Prairie schools. They're both in the high school. One a recent graduate who is a student at UWM, although now she is in Florida on spring break, and we're not nervous about that at all. I previously served on the school board for just under 14 years, including 2 terms as president and also chair of the Policies and Instruction Committee and period of time as vice president. During the time I served on the board, we went through 2 rounds of some of the largest cuts in state aid to education in the history of the state. We went through COVID. We went through 2 referendums which touched almost every building in our district. And we also went through the dislocation of Act 10, which had the potential to fracture our relationship with our staff, which begs the question of why I want to do this again. And the reason is that I think that our schools, in a growing community, the schools are the center of the community. And I think Sauk Prairie, that has always been the case, and that needs to continue to be the case. And in order to do that, you have to show leadership, and you have to be able to execute a vision. And that's something that I think I'm uniquely positioned to do. Thank you.
Jim.
First, I'd like to thank you to the Sauk Prairie Education Association and to the Sauk Prairie Optimist Club for hosting this forum, and to Dennis for moderating. I'm Jim Isaacson, and I'm running for a 3rd term on the Sauk Prairie School Board, representing the villages of Merrimack, the towns of Caledonia, Merrimack, and West Point. I've served as board president for the last year and as vice president before that. My wife, Michelle, and I have 3 daughters who attended Sauk Prairie schools for all of their K-12 education. The older 2 are currently working as nurses, and our youngest is in her sophomore year of college working toward a nursing degree of her own. The education provided by our district prepared them well for life after high school, and along with their hard work, opened the doors for many opportunities. When a seat on the board opened up 6 years ago, I chose to run and serve the district that served my daughters so well. And while I no longer have children in the district, public education is still a passion of mine. I've been honored to serve this community to help ensure all children are afforded the opportunity to receive a quality education that prepares them for life after high school and help them become productive citizens. I've learned a lot over the past 6 years, including how much I still have to learn. I ask for your vote to use what I've learned to continue to serve our district and community. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. John?
My name is John Hutchins. I live in Honey Creek, and I represent the townships of Honey Creek, Franklin, and Troy. I am also serving my first term as vice president this year, and I'm proud to have been a member of Sauk Prairie community for over 23 years. Also fortunate to be the father of 2 students in our district at both the middle school and the high school, and I'm also the husband of a teacher in our school district. I have a degree in computer science. I've worked for the Wisconsin court system for over 23 years. I've enjoyed my role over the past 3 years on the school board, and I look forward to serving another term, another 3 years. As you see, I am running unopposed, and I look forward to answering questions tonight, and I hope that everyone in the community continues to engage all of the school board often. I think we all look forward to engagement via email, text, phone, and hearing our constituents is always a great thing. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Nick?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Franciscovich. I live in Prairie du Sac. I am hoping to have the opportunity to represent the villages of Prairie du Sac and Sauk City. Excuse me. As a new face and a new name to the school board, I am leveraging my expertise and experience in education. I started in 2003 in the city of Milwaukee. I had no idea what being a teacher was. I was drawn to it, given my interest in autism and supporting students with special needs. And I still remember to this day walking in the day before school started, because that's what I believe teachers did. And I was met at the door and told that I had late IEPs, and parents were on the phone, and the principal wanted to meet with me. And from that day onward, I had a complete, profound passion for education and a respect for educators. The work that our educators do each and every day is unparalleled in many, many ways. I see that at home. My wife is an educator within the Sauk Prairie School District and gives her heart and soul to everything she does. And my own kids are both at Grand Avenue in 4th grade and 3rd grade, and really appreciating that experience. I think the piece that I look forward to the most is this notion of service through our community and being a voice for those people and a contact for everyone in all walks of life and what they feel like sharing with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. All right, we have our first question, and for the purpose of questions, I will probably just go with you two in the middle, and we'll work our way around since these 2 guys get their first shot. So, John, I'll start with you. Question number 1. What's your own personal school story? For instance, where did you attend? What things did you enjoy the most? And was there an educator who left a lasting impression? Go ahead and give that
thank you.
a moment's thought.
So I attended elementary school in Thelma, Wisconsin, all the way through high school. And I can remember multiple educators for multiple reasons. I think some of the ones that had the bigger impact were on my formative years, like through 4th through 6th grade. I remember there was a male educator, which at that time was fairly rare, and he did a really good job bonding with all of the kids, and we had a lot of fun in his class. And I believe that really overall, being in school gives you structure, and it gave me the tools that I've used throughout my life to further my education through college, and then becoming part of problem solving in the workforce, and being part of teams that are solving problems currently for the court system, as well as having empathy for our teachers and preparing our students to be successful.
Thanks, John. Jim, just to reiterate, what's your personal school story? For instance, where did you attend? What things did you enjoy the most? And was there an educator who left a lasting impression on you?
I grew up in Eau Claire, and I went all through K through 12 in Eau Claire. And from day one, my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Horan, just seeing her with these incoming students that had never been in a classroom before, and the compassion that she had, and the kindness she showed with these kids, some of whom were struggling, being away from home for the first time, and just she met everyone where they were at that time, and it stuck with me all the years with all the other teachers I had after her, and many of them were like that, but she just set this tone for my education of what teachers were like and what they could be and what they should be. And from there, I went on to UW-Madison, got a degree in philosophy. But Mrs. Horan had the biggest impact starting right away in kindergarten.
You know, there's a book, Everything I Ever Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. Sounds like Mrs. Horan could have been your inspiration for that. Rich?
I went to school in Reedsburg, and this is a really hard question because there were so many teachers that really touched my life and the lives of my friends and students around me. The public schools in Reedsburg were great, and the opportunities were great. And sometimes when I talk to my kids about the things that they're doing, they're kind of shocked when I say, like, you know, we were doing this back in 7th grade, back in the late 1800s, and that's what it was like. And they're shocked at sort of like the kind of projects that we did and things like that. But there was one teacher who really stood out, not just because of the way he connected with me, but the way he connected with so many kids in our school, and particularly in my class. And that was Stephen Balda, who was our social studies teacher and taught advanced social studies classes as well. And he was both a caring teacher who could reach out when I had a friend who really struggled. He had reading issues. And Mr. Balda really brought him along and actually brought him to the point where he excelled. But he really drove us to think about things in ways that we hadn't really got to it in our previous education, and to really get into critical thinking and really challenged us. And I think it's a testament to how great of a mentor and teacher he was that when we graduated from high school, we continued to reach out to Mr. Balda and continued to be friends with him. And when I was on the school board, one of the traditions of the school board is when you're first elected, you get designated as the CISA representative for this conference that happens shortly after the election. And I sat down at that conference, and Mr. Balda was behind me and was sort of going, hey, Judge, this part's not important. This part's important. He was continuing to mentor me, and then he became a mentor for me as a new school board member. So it's the lifelong impact of that relationship and the relationships with so many teachers who we remember every day, and that they just never go away, those influences.
Thanks, Rich. Nick?
I largely agree with everything that's been said thus far. Every teacher is so critically positioned to hold a positive relationship that lasts throughout the years, even into adulthood. I think when I went to school, I went to school in Brown Deer, which is a northwest suburb of Milwaukee. Smaller district. Our entire district was on one large block, so you just went from corner to corner. When I was younger, I aspired largely just to be a shadow. I was happy because I was smart in terms of school. I knew the answers to things, and that the work wasn't hard. But socially, things like this would have just reduced me to tears to be able to speak in front of people and try to sound eloquent. And so I just went through the motions through elementary year, through middle school. My report card looked great, but I wasn't growing as a person really until 8th grade. I was placed in the homeroom with Mr. Madlung, and I think one of my fellow people up here said, the male teachers is a very positive experience, exciting experience to be taught by a Mr. instead of a Mrs. He kind of saw through my facade and really pushed me to grow, and I think that was the starting point of having more self-confidence and more courageousness to go forward and put myself into new positions. So to this day, I still hold Mr. Madlung very near and dear to my heart. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Our second question for this evening, why are school boards necessary for public education? In your opinion, what role do they play? And Jim, we will start with you.
Why are school boards necessary? School boards outline a general direction of the district. They're not in the business of micromanaging. That's more of the superintendent role. But school boards want to give where the district is going to go into the future, and have these big, broad plans put in place, and then let the superintendent and his staff carry out those plans for them. So the role of the board is to come up and figure out what is best for the district and the community, and then let the superintendent take it from there, and hopefully can achieve those goals set forward.
Thanks, Jim. Rich?
I guess I would build on what Jim said. I think that the role of school boards is not the actual day-to-day management of schools, but they are absolutely vital. And one of the reasons being that school staff interact on a daily basis with students, and sometimes on a daily basis with parents, but probably not on a daily basis with parents. But school staff and administrators are constantly in the business of interacting with parents. But there's a whole, as I said before, schools are the center of the community, and in our schools are funded to a very large extent through the property tax. So the school board is about being sort of that bridge to the community at large. The teaching staff and the administrators, they're sort of that direct bridge to parents and students. But the school board fulfills an additional role of being a bridge to the community. The people who actually interface with those folks who no longer have kids in school, maybe have never had kids in school, are retirees, people who care about the future of the community and care about the schools, but they no longer have sort of a direct day-to-day involvement in it anymore, or maybe they never did. And school boards play that vital role of bridging that sort of gap that exists between those two experiences. And that's absolutely vital when school districts have to think about growing for the future, investing in the future, making plans for the future. If you only talk to the folks who you deal with on a daily basis, it's very hard to get those other folks invested in, look, this is central to the future of this community and for growth.
Thanks, Rich. Nick, let me just repeat, why are school boards necessary for public education, and what role do they play?
School boards are necessary because those who serve not for themselves, but as a voice for the community. And I think that's a critical characteristic of any school board member, really, is to represent those members in the community who may not have that direct one-on-one interaction with school, who may pass you as they're walking their dog down your sidewalk. Because anyone who pays taxes within the Sauk Prairie School District attendance area really is giving the district that money with the hope that it's being used wisely, that it's being used to invest in the future, that a healthy school district really is symbolic of a healthy community at large. And that role is not something that can be taken lightly, really. I think you need to be aware of your own personal biases and what you bring to the table, so that you can better and perhaps more accurately represent what the community's thoughts and feelings and opinions about the school district are. And that comes with transparency, and that comes with relationships that you build. And that's how a school district and the superintendent in particular can get that information in real time, accurately, and timely.
Thanks, Nick. And John?
Sure. I really don't have a unique spin on this, but school boards are necessary because we basically are the conduit between the taxpayers and the administration of the school. So, we're in a role basically to hear from our constituents, and we represent them to help them to steer the way in which they want the school district to go, whether that's some specific thing that they're interested in. We can convey that to our superintendent or the people that basically serve the taxpayers, because the school district is funded by our taxes. So we're all basically just conduits to convey messages and hopefully steer the school district in a way in which our taxpayers see fit. And that's why I love to hear from all of you out there and everyone that is a constituent, because that's really I see that as my job when I'm on the school board, is I'm one person, but if I can help make the administration and bring things to the attention of the school board, that's what I'm here for. So school boards are definitely necessary, and that's what I see our role as.
Thanks, guys, and thanks for shielding us from all the legalese that you could have entered into there. Our third question this evening: what are 2 or 3 strengths of which our district can be proud? Why do you see these as strengths? I'll give you just a few seconds to think on that. And Rich, will start with you when you're ready.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things that our district can be proud of. We're sitting in a room that a lot of districts, which can change dramatically. If you've been in this room before, it probably looked totally different the last time you were in it. There aren't a lot of districts that are willing to think as creatively as our district has in how we've developed our facilities, how we've reimagined our facilities, and how we've changed those in a relatively short period of time. And I think that speaks to the level of community involvement and community support that our schools have here in Sauk Prairie, and the fact that there is a sense of investment that goes across the sort of broader community, not just, the parents are really excited about it, but people who have not even ever had kids, or their kids went to school 25 years ago, they're excited about the outcomes in the school. And I think that speaks to a sense of community involvement that is a tremendous asset. I think one of the other things that this district does pretty well is we have, it's trendy to say and embrace disruption. People are always talking about the disruptors in business and the disruptors in government, and you've got to shake things up. Our district has a culture that does not overinvest in the status quo, but that does not embrace disruption either. So that we do, because one of the downsides of having a constant disruption is you create division, you create battle lines that people have a tough time getting over. And I think our district has embraced, internally and in the community at large, a culture that challenges the status quo when necessary, but that also respects and is considerate of what we have built over time and values that. And so as a result, we don't have the divisiveness, we don't have the problems that we see in some of our neighboring districts where the schools become sort of a battleground in the community.
Thanks, Rich. Nick, we'll go down to you.
Okay. Sauk has a ton of strengths. I think the first two that came to mind for me are kind of dovetailed together, being the quality of educators we have in our district. Having been one myself, I'm obviously biased. I think they're able to hire really, really good teachers and retain really good teachers. And when I say that, I do mean any adult within the school building is an educator, whether it be the custodian, the lunch ladies, the office ladies, who are oftentimes the students' favorites. When you walk in a Sauk school building, it has a very warm and safe and just a positive feeling that many other schools in the state would be lucky to have, and I've been around and seen that. I think the second part that dovetails nicely with that is also the educational opportunities. Walking around the high school staff, I'm assuming the administration has done that with some oversight from the board, the creation of the portrait of a Sauk Prairie graduate, and I think instilling a sense of opportunity for our young people to go, whether it be to continue their education in a 4-year institution, to go right into the trades, to go seek employment, is really outstanding in that regard. And then finally, my third strength is the community connection and the relationship. There have been many opportunities for the community to show their ongoing support of our district, and most notably in the passage of past referenda. And I think even having members of our community here today is symbolic of that support. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. John?
All right, 2 or 3 strengths of our district I have written down. Our community is both strong and supportive. I guess the supporting, they support so many items so many ideas that the school district has. One example would be solar. We have very strong members of our community who've raised money to put solar panels on the high school roof. And the fact that our community is this way, many of the teachers that we have are actually Sauk Prairie alumni, and I think that's really cool that teachers are going and getting an education and they come back and then they want to be here and they stay here. We have extremely good retention of our teachers, and that makes for consistent and high quality education. The second thing is I believe that we are on good financial footing. We've paid back bonds early, saving the taxpayers literally millions of dollars over the last it will save that much over I can't remember if it's 5 or 10 years. And then lastly, I put that our leadership listens and responds to community concerns. That's both at the school board level as well as our administrators. So I think those are the 3 strengths.
Thanks, John. And Jim?
Yeah, I have to agree with staff. Our staff being number one, they're just second to none. Without them, nothing else happens good in this district. And we've been fortunate to be able to hire some of the top educators around the area when other districts are struggling to hire staff, and they have a high turnover. And fortunately, we're not one of them. And as others have mentioned, the community and business relations of this. With the district is so vital. As been mentioned, referendums, people are there to step up and support referendums to give us facilities like this in our high school and our athletic fields and whatever needs come along. The donations that are there weekly at our board meetings, that people are giving small dollar amounts, whatever they can to support whatever causes that are important to them. It really makes a difference in our programming. Especially in these tight times with budgets. Every dollar helps give kids a better education. And as John said, the financial position of our district, it's a very, very big strength for our district. When So many districts across the state are going to operational referendums just to keep their doors open, and we're just not in that position because of past boards and their due diligence when it comes to our finances have kept us in a very good financially sound position. And I'll just say one more. Our special education program in our schools is top-notch. Many parents try to open enroll, bring their kids into our district just to seek out the special education we offer in our district. So that would be a final one.
Thank you, gentlemen. Nick, this next question will be starting with you. What do you feel are the biggest current challenges for the Sauk Prairie School Board specifically, and the institution of public education at large? So the greatest challenges for our district specifically, but then also for public education at large. What are those current challenges?
Can I ask just for clarification, when it says the school board, did you interpret that more as the district and the partnership with the school board?
Well, I think from your perspective, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to answer that question since you're not currently sitting on the school board or had experience. So why don't you address that with regard to the Sauk Prairie schools, generally speaking?
Okay. I can just dive right in and say I think times are changing rapidly with mental health and social emotional well-being and academic needs and like the post-COVID bump or however you want to attribute that. I think education today is not the state of education when I started 23 years ago, and I think I'm not even sure what the next 5 years will look like. I think there needs to be a responsiveness to what students need right now, and I think the community is seeking additional avenues of support. And like the commonly held belief that school is the beating heart of a community, which I agree with, but I also feel there's limits in terms of what schools and educators within the schools can do. I think teachers and educators have long, through that desire to help, have long burdened themselves with reaching to every child and addressing mental health needs, addressing food and health crises that families are experiencing, challenging home situations, academic struggles. The pressures on educators keep mounting, and often the response is, just take better care of yourself, find time to separate, but that's nearly impossible to do as an educator when you keep giving that much. And I think to be able to drill down and really take a scientific approach to starting one initiative really forcefully and making progress instead of having this broad field view, but staying focused and moving forward together is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. John and Jim are going to be speaking from a little different perspective as active board members. So, John?
Sure. I think one of our biggest challenges right now is a good challenge to have, but we've been very fortunate to have some major grants, especially related to mental health. And so in order to continue those services at the level that we are able to provide them right now with that grant money, once that grant money is gone, we need to get ahead of that and make sure that we have ways in which we can continue providing services at that level, because I think that those are becoming very valuable to our community, and we definitely don't want to see those just stop after the money stops, after the grants are finished. So I look forward. The other things that we have going that we are being challenged with right now is funding for 3K and 4K programs, as well as childcare. And so that's kind of those are the big things I think we're working on right now that I think we're making good progress on. And then I think public education in general at the higher level, I think, is the biggest challenge there is just the trend of severely underfunding from the state level, mainly in the area, at all areas, but it seems like special education is severely underfunded, and that doesn't seem to be changing, and it would make our lives on the school board and the services our schools provide if the state would provide some more funds for our special education program. So.
Thank you, John. Jim?
And I think John has identified that is the biggest challenge is the budget itself and just the unknown dollars that a district is going to have to work with year by year. The formulas, as most of you may know, are just so complicated that there's just no more rhyme or reason of what to expect going in the future. And then to try to sit and have negotiations based on not knowing what those dollars are that you're going to have to spend. It's just that the amount that the state has invested in our schools has just dropped so dramatically since, about 2010, 2012. If we had just kept pace with inflation, we'd have about $3,000 more per student directly affecting our budget at this point. And so we continually have to do more with less money, and that just continues to be a challenge that we have to find innovative ways to make up for that lack of funding in our schools. And we turn to we have such a gracious community that we're able to turn to in times of need, but that's not a way to plan for the future. We just need to keep trying to find new ways to, again, do more with less money than we have.
Thanks, Jim. Rich?
I think everyone here has made excellent points on this, and just to build off of that foundation, I think one of the problems that we have is a current challenge for this district and every district in Wisconsin is that the state funding, not only is it inadequate, but we don't know what it's going to be year in, year out. One year, there's a zero increase for public education. The next year, there's a windfall. So we have 1 year where we get $175 per pupil. The next year, we get zero. And then there's $250 the year after that, but then there's maybe zero after that. It's very hard to plan and to have a strategic vision for a school when you have that kind of instability. And that's one of the reasons why this district and other districts as well, why it's so important to have that fiscal stability and that fiscal responsibility, because it helps you to navigate those ups and downs. Staffing is a tremendous challenge for our district, for every district in the state. Replacing retiring teachers, replacing people who are leaving the profession, the shortage of folks who are going into the profession, because this is a tough job. And oftentimes, and I think this sort of bleeds into the next one, what are the challenges of public education? Public education has become this convenient political football where people go after educators when they want to score points, and they go after public education when they want to make cheap political points. And those are people, that doesn't change the fact that those kids are showing up every single day, year in, year out, needing that education, and those people still have to perform that job. Amidst all of that, the challenges to their finances, the challenges to finding new people, and then to also be often the victims of public scorn and attack. And those are significant challenges, not just for our district, but everywhere.
Rich, thank you. John will be going to you for our fifth question starter. 3 of the 4 of you live in households with Sauk Prairie School District employees. How will you remain objective not only in voting, but in discussion when considering topics that impact you and your family? And
sure.
Here, we'll start with you. Jim, if you want to speak to this in a moment, feel free, but thanks. I know we're skipping over you with this question.
Sure.
John?
So I thought about this a lot before I actually ran for the school board, and I like to think of myself as fairly objective. First off, if there's ever a conflict of interest, I abstain from any of those votes, and I think that's generally our practice as a school board. We make sure that anyone who may be positively impacted by any of the decisions, even if it's something as simple as my wife who works for the district was, had a team lead position for, a few $100s extra in her contract. And I was like, I better abstain from that vote. So that's clearly the first thing that happens. But when I take part in the discussions, Generally, I'm not on the wage negotiation committees or meet and confer groups that talk with the teachers and negotiate with the teachers. So I try to separate myself from those discussions, or I do separate myself from those discussions. But I think mostly I provide when we're discussing things. Everyone on the school board knows that that's the situation that I am in, both with the kids in school as well as my wife being a teacher. And so I'll just provide my perspective, but I don't actively try to sway people in a certain way based on the fact that I might, make a few more dollars or something may benefit my children. And I guess I've never really come up against a decision that I thought would be only benefiting my children, because I feel like the things that we do for school, like if it's going to benefit all of the children, it's probably a good thing. So,
thanks, Nick. Jim, I'm going to have you speak to this at the end as the current president, I should say. Rich?
To build off John's comments, I don't think this is a significant issue simply because the board has in place, our district has in place standards for recusal, has in place protections to ensure that no board member will ever take a vote that would personally benefit them in any financial way. And that is, if you miss one, we've referenced excellent staff at every level here. We have excellent staff that support the board in the administration office who will remind board members, hey, by the way, this vote here, you're going to want to sit on that one because it, in theory, could benefit you. So I don't think that's ever been a problem. And I will say, going back well before my time on the board, there have been often board members who had spouses who were employees of the district. And I think the key element to it is transparency, that the community knows that, they're upfront about it, there is no secret about it. And then when there is anything that might appear to have any kind of a conflict of interest, there's a strict standard for recusal. And I think that transparency, having that built into the process and having that built into policy is central to making sure that there is no conflict. The other thing I guess I would say too is board members, the role of the board is oversight, is broad oversight. And so board members are not managing. So if you have a spouse who's a teacher in a particular school, we don't micromanage those schools. We don't engage in supervision of folks in those schools. So the board's really involved in things that are at a much more strategic level that do not actually engage or impact the individual performance of a spouse in their job.
Thanks, Rich. Nick?
Okay, and I'll just add on to say, obviously, if given the opportunity to serve on the board, this would be a new experience for me and one that I would look forward to learning the ins and outs of, recognizing that it's difficult with my wife serving the school district as a teacher. I think I would try to leverage, like I do in my professional life, as an IEP facilitator, right? I sit in the middle of the table between the school district and the family and try to find that balance of what are the just right needs for that particular student. And I could see that same skill set that I've developed over the years falling in line really well with service on the board. And I think the most important part for me would be maintaining a strong moral boundary of where my own biases lie and what could possibly benefit my wife, but also seeking that input from her, because I do think teachers' voices are as important as any member of the community. And she would have theoretically a direct line to a school board, to be able, a school board member, to speak her concern or to share strengths. And I think every voice matters and every opinion is worthwhile to bring up. So,
thank you, Nick. Jim, a little different perspective, maybe as the current president and acting president, but without a spouse on the board.
Sure.
Or as an employee, I should say, of the district.
Yeah.
How would you address this?
My perspective, my 6 years on the board has not been an issue at any board meeting. As been stated, there are checks, in place if there are any conflicts to arise. The way I see it, having spouses in our district, that that's their voices and perspectives are important, and they give us some good insights into the school that we can use to make them better. So instead of seeing it as a negative, I see it as a great positive for the board to have some people that have these different perspectives that they can bring to the board as a whole, for some of us that don't have that inside view of what's happening in our schools.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. Let's see, where are we? We started that one with, what did we start with? John. So, Jim, will be starting with you on question number 6. In the face of financial challenges that most public institutions face, along with the issue of staff retention, would you consider an operating referendum question to ensure programs and staffing can continue in the future?
I would certainly consider it, but it's not a preference of mine. I just don't think that's a good way for planning for the future. I think the ultimate goal is to be working within the budget that we have, and our district has done a very good job of doing that my 6 years on the board. While, like I said earlier, other districts have had to go to referendums just to keep their doors open, and a lot of that may be due to some past not doing so well with the taxpayer dollars as our district has. The day may come where the state dollars just don't give us that opportunity, and we just no longer can have the funds to do it, and we do have to go ask the taxpayers for more money. But I'd like to try to avoid that anyway, and do what we can with the dollars that we're given from state and federal governments.
Thanks, Jim. Rich?
I think that we've talked a lot about financial challenges here, and we've also talked about the fact that we have great community support here, and we passed 2 referendums, and what seemed like fairly easy with strong support. Those were building referendums. Those were referendums that we were investing for 50 years at a time. Operational referendum, and part of what we were able to do with those referendums, and part of the reason we were able to pass them, I think I don't want to say they were easy, but with relative ease, was the fact that we were not coming back consistently and asking over and over and over again, like many school districts have to do. And that is one of the slippery slopes of going down that road of an operating referendum. It is not a process. When you build a new high school, or renovate a high school, you're saying this is going to take care of this for the next 35 to 50 years. When you go down the road of an operating referendum, you're basically saying this is the path we're going to be on until this gets fixed at a different level. I think one of the things that this really highlights is the importance for school board members and school districts to advocate with their legislators to fix the problems that we have in our state funding, so operational referendums become less need for them and less frequent. But I would say this: if a district, operational referendums have a much lower rate of success than building referendums, I think when they are successful, they are often coupled with other strategic initiatives in a district that look at I think you have to make a case that is not just, hey, we're going to keep the doors open, as Jim said. Our district's in a very strong financial position. We've saved millions and millions of dollars in our borrowing costs when we had to build. Once you start going down the operational referendum path, your bond rating drops and the cost of borrowing for anything you do in the future increases. So it is something you have to go into eyes wide open and with a lot of caution.
Thanks, Rich. Nick?
If it came down to the district requiring or needing an operating referendum to pass, I don't know that I would be able to immediately sign off on it without knowing or without having taken part in steps along the way to ensure that fiscal responsibility that we've aligned all of our initiatives to really get down to the brass tacks of what educational funding can look like. I think one of those things that immediately came to mind as I was sitting up here is open enrollment numbers, right? How many students do we have enrolling out, which I think historically, looking at board notes, is quite a bit lower than those coming in. And again, that's the overall attractability of Sauk Prairie School District, and really the marketing of what this district can offer all learners, including those in our community and those from outside of our community. I think ultimately an operating referendum is not a long-term solution. And I think that establishes this sense of unease or distrust between the community of, oh, we're asking for X amount of dollars for these next 2 years, but then we're going to need more. And I think that transparency and communication, that having historically been able to avoid that, is really where we're at this place of strong trust and belief in the identity of the Sauk Prairie School District right now.
Thanks, Nick. John?
I would love to say yes. Like let's put this operational referendum on the agenda and do this like every 3 or 4 years so that we can give all of our staff a raise. That would be fantastic. However, because we live in the community that we're in, we don't have the luxury of some certain communities which may almost be all but guaranteed to vote for in perpetuity, just continue to vote yes on those operational referenda. So I'd feel very uncomfortable doing that just because it would be a short-term fix, because you could probably only do that 1 or 2 times before you start having your constituents saying, well, wait a minute, we're continuing to increase the budget here, and 95% or more of districts throughout our state have gone to these operational referenda, and Sauk Prairie is one of the very few who has not. And that, as a member of the school board, makes me proud that we're able to basically live within our means. And I would like to continue that. But clearly, if we're in a position where we would need to ask that, I would also need to know that state funding is changing somehow, that will fix it in more of a long-term way, and this stopgap measure would be just that, like we'd be guaranteed after 3 years or 5 years or whatever that we would have funding from a different source. So that's where I'm at with that.
Thanks, John. Let me ask a follow-up to that. And this would be with regard to our employees. It's becoming increasingly difficult for our employees to live within the community in which they teach. What kinds of things might our school board be able to do outside of an operational referendum to help teachers live closer to where they teach?
Is that for me?
We would start with and this can just be like a 45-second answer, perhaps.
Well,
unless you want. No, let's just keep it at the same length.
I can tell you a couple of things we've done recently to try to attract more. We've identified the need for daycare in our community, so we are pursuing a district-run daycare facility that will be revenue neutral. That will not only help families in our district, but also help our staff who live in this district and need daycare for their children. And housing in our district is another blockade for people moving to our district and increasing our attendance in our schools. So recently we sold some land to a developer, and we had some say in what's going to be developed there with some affordable housing, so that more people can afford to move to our community and live and work in the same space.
Thanks.
So those are just 2 things that we've done to try to address some of the needs of our community that directly affect our schools.
Appreciate that. Rich, ideas?
Well, I think that it's difficult to solve a problem as a school board that is as significant as the incredible cost increases in the cost of housing. But I think Jim has highlighted 2 areas where this district has taken a leadership role, and where the strong community relations that we've highlighted throughout here have played a significant role in the partnerships that this school district has with the community, in that the school district looked at selling the land that we had for a long time, as Jim mentioned, put conditions on that sale. Now that development is in process with the Village of Prairie du Sac. where we're going through changes in zoning, and I happen to serve on the Planning Commission and working with the village board, where we're going through to hold their feet to the fire to make sure that original promise, that original condition that the district put on there, that actually occurs, that they make good on that. And that's going to be a real challenge. The daycare as well. That's another example of something that the school district is helping to do, but the strength of our community is making it possible. That's going to be a school district run and a village owned project. In many communities, the village doesn't necessarily connect with the school district all that well, but the quality of relationships and the quality of collaboration, or the culture of collaboration that exists, helps to build upon opportunities where you can tackle some of those problems. It's not going to solve them, but it does help to make some headway.
Nick, ideas?
This is, again, one, as an educator myself, I'm clearly very biased on this subject, but I will say I think as the cost of living continues to increase and teacher pay scales, by and large, have remained relatively stagnant, like working to keep up with the cost of living allowance across past years, I think the simplest solution is pay the teachers more. Now, that being said, that's harder to do with limited funding. And I think balancing that it's more than what a school board has say in. Ultimately, I think that has input from the community at large. I think a partnership with the educators union, it would be important, right? People outside of this school board have ideas and solutions to the problem. And I think that can be more deeply explored through discourse and honest and open communication. We're in a run of bad luck right now with the housing market being the way it is. And there's just so many food prices, fuel prices, right? Like there's things that are just continuing to increase, and teachers, through their own grit and tenacity, are staying put because they believe in this community, they believe in this school district, they believe in the opportunities it holds for their own children. But ultimately, like I said, when it comes down to it, I think educators need to be paid more, and it's up really to the school district and community on how to fund that.
Thanks, Nick. And John.
So I guess just expanding a little bit on what we've done. So with that land sale that both Rich and Jim mentioned, it's not like we're going to build. So this developer entered into an agreement with both the village and when we sold. So the idea behind that is that there will be a multitude of both apartments, I believe some duplexes, and then eventually some senior living options. And so what the goal there is to help create more churn or turnover of some of these like 3, 4, 5-bedroom homes that we have. Some of our older residents who don't want to leave the community because frankly this community is awesome. They might decide that it's easier to have someone maintain their property and move to something like that. So then that'll hopefully open up the market a little bit for allowing some price easing. And the other thing that I don't think anyone mentioned was the fact that we're working very hard currently to make healthcare more affordable for our employees. We're currently in contract negotiations. There's been some information about the clinic that's opening up at the hospital. So hopefully what that will do is to reduce some of the costs. We're already, so over the last 5 years, we've been well under what other employees are having to pay for health care. This time it's going to go up a little bit, but we've innovated in that realm so that it will continue to stay below what other communities or what other school districts are having to pay for their health care. So hopefully that will all help our staff to be able to afford living here.
Thanks, John. Rich, we're going to start with you with our final question for the evening, after which we will have your summary statements. And Nick, we will be beginning with you for those summary statements. And then we will have the opportunity after the formal time is done. If you have any personal questions or questions that you'd like to follow up on, please, candidates, are you all willing to stick around for a few minutes at least? Great. So, Rich, recently there is a magnifying lens on specific materials available to students within school districts and their libraries. If a parent wants to have a book banned from the district, do you agree with the system in place to address this concern within the Sauk Prairie School District?
I do. I think the policy we have in place is adequate, and I think that it protects both a parent who's concerned about what their child is individually exposed to, but it also protects the right of all other students and parents that their children have access to reading materials that they might not find objectionable. What it does is it ensures that a person I can't dictate what your kids get to read any more than you can dictate what my kids get to read, but you have every right to protect your child or attempt to protect your child from content that you find objectionable, and that alternatives will be provided. What it does do is it prevents the problem that we're seeing in some other school districts and some other states where one parent basically decides, and often this is driven by national groups that are helping to fund them, they get to, I think Elkhorn just banned about close to 500 books that got removed from their libraries and from their classrooms, and it was all basically one parent, and that parent had no requirements to read any of that material, had no requirements to actually do anything. They just filed it, and it was a very haphazard process. I think our policy that we have in place is a strong one. I think we've had good experience with it, and I think we should be much more concerned that kids aren't reading enough books as opposed to trying to create rules about or set the standard for things, telling them the books we don't want them to read. We should be trying to get them to just read a lot more books.
Thanks, Rich. Nick?
I will be honest and upfront and say I am unfamiliar with the policy, as I don't think I would ask to have a book banned. I think that comes to the decision to be made by the family. As a father myself, I do take interest and I take time to see what my kids are reading, if for nothing more is that I can have a conversation with them around the dinner table. I think realistically, I'm much less concerned about what our librarians and our public schools are putting on the shelves to be checked out by our children, by our students, than what they see on TV, than what they see on the internet, on YouTube, on commercial. There's much more concern for me outside of the walls of school than where I believe schools can be a safe place for everyone. And certainly the library is probably one of the safest places for everyone.
Thanks, Nick. John?
I'm 100% against banning books. Our policy has served us extremely well. As Rich was saying, basically just echo exactly what Rich said. I think as long as a parent is interested and engaged with their own child, and if they have a specific concern, our policy addresses that need. Personally, I would just, if my children were reading some book that I thought was extremely graphic or something of that nature, I honestly don't know that I would stop them from reading it, but I would definitely discuss it with them afterwards to make them understand that, what they're seeing and ask them how they're feeling about it, I would just try to engage instead of just saying, you can't see that. So that's my opinion.
Thanks, John. And Jim?
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with the policy we have in place. I think my favorite part of the policy is that we require anybody that wants to challenge a book to have read the book before they can challenge the book. So I think that's a very important piece to it that may limit a lot of the challenges that come to books. the parents have every right to opt their child out of reading any material and find alternatives, but they don't have the right to opt everyone else out of that book that they may disagree with. I trust our library staff, media specialists to choose the books that are on our shelves and the materials that we have, and they're the professionals, and I'll leave it up to them.
Yeah. Thanks. It was that very issue that brought me onto the school board, and I've appreciated the policies that we have developed as a school and that Neola has helped us to develop, and they have served us well, as have our educators who guide conversations about important and controversial topics in the classroom. So, gentlemen, thank you. Now we move on to our summary statements. So, Nick, we'll begin with you, and we'll work our way down.
Okay. Well, once again, thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. Thank you to our co-hosts, and Dennis, thank you for manning the podium up there. I just want to conclude by saying I work a lot and think about education a lot in terms of like metaphors and imagery. And I think one of the metaphors that has stuck with me most profoundly recently is this notion that public school or the school experience should be a window and a mirror for every student. And that means that essentially when they think about their school experience and how instruction is delivered to them, the things they experience and all the opportunities they have, the mirror, they should be able to see themselves. And identity for all young kids and young adults is very important as they are learning who they are and who they will, and hope for who they will be. And that leads itself to the window of allowing them to see a future that is open to them through engagement and learning and growth within a public school system. And that to me is really a grounding piece of who do we have walking into our school buildings each and every day? Who will they become? And really like that notion of a limitless future, the limitless possibilities for them. And how can I, in an act of or a role of service, support them in coming that much closer to what they want to do?
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. John?
I guess in summary, I would just like to say that I've learned a ton over the last 3 years. When I first started 3 years ago, it was supposed to be the end of COVID, but it ended up being not the end of COVID, and I had sort of a trial by fire, I guess, for the first year, with a lot of engagement with people who agreed, disagreed, had many different opinions, and it was really enjoyable to engage respectfully with people via email, and probably for the better that all of the complaints and things of that nature have dropped off significantly over the past couple of years. But I really look forward to hearing more and being more of the conduit so that I can help taxpayers of all stripes, whether or not you have children in the district, or just have opinions about what we should be doing. I would welcome engagement via email, via phone, via text. Please reach out to us. I guess I don't really speak for the whole board when I say this, but at least for me, if you have questions, if you have anything, just please reach out. And thanks everyone for coming and watching and setting this all up. Both the Sauk Prairie Education Association, the Optimists, and Dennis. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Jim.
Sure. Well, I have to say it's been an honor to serve these past 6 years, and I still have a fire to continue serving, and that's why I'm here again. looking to continue. To build on what I've learned, there is, like John said, there's a lot to learn when you first come on a school board. It can be pretty overwhelming, and it can take some time to learn all the intricacies and all the moving parts that go along with it. And I'm still learning. And my 6 years, I've attended a lot of Wisconsin Association of School Boards to help further my learning, and I go to the state convention every year. All 6 years I've attended that and developed these relationships with other board members across the state. I attend like monthly meetings with other district board members, and recently there's been a new Greater Dane County consortium starting up that I've joined. Just to learn from other districts what they're doing, because there's a lot of value to that. See what they're doing wrong, what they're doing right, and you can pick up those little pieces that may help your own district. There's something to be said for new board members coming on and having new voices, but there's also a lot of good that comes from having experienced board members and all they've learned and what they can bring to the district. So I'd like to thank you for all your support, and hopefully you can give me another vote and give me another 3 years to continue the work I've been doing. And again, thank you to the host for organizing this forum. I think it's really important to have our voices out there to the public so they can learn a little bit about the candidates, who's going to be representing them. And thanks again, Dennis, for moderating.
Thank you. Rich.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. Thanks, Dennis. Thanks to the Optimists and SPIA for hosting this once again. This is an important thing to have opportunities for forums like this. I'd also like to thank all of the folks here up at this table, especially Nick, who's running against me, or we're running against each other. Serving on the school board was one of the greatest honors of my life, but it's tough. There's a lot of times where there are very difficult situations you have to deal with, very difficult decisions to make. You put yourself out there in front of the community, and everybody here and their willingness to do that, I think, it speaks volumes about their character. And with that, I'll tell a little story. All of us were interviewed by the South Central Federation of Labor when they were making their endorsement interviews, and I was called by someone from it when they wanted to call to let me know that I earned the endorsement, but they actually praised all of our people, and they said, "Your 4 people were all great." And we sat through interviews with districts all around you, and there would be 4, 5, 6 people who were all terrible. But everybody from Sauk was better than the people that we were interviewing in these other places. We were joking about how we wish we could spread the wealth and get them out to other places. And I think that speaks volumes about the positivity and the forward thinking of this district and also this board over a long period of time. And when you have a sort of a forward thinking and have your eye on progress, you tend to get positive people who care deeply, and I think that's what all the folks who are here. And so thank you for being here, but thank all of you for being here as well.
Indeed, well said, all of you. Thank you. And Jim and John don't really need to be here. So we do owe them a debt of gratitude for just being here and amping this conversation up. But I want to just conclude by saying, I don't know about you, but I love this community. I think you do too. I think you love Sauk, and that's why you're here today. We are not, my family was not born here, so we don't have the pedigree. But we are here by choice, and we've stayed by choice. And my 3 kids all graduated from this district. And it was because of the support staff, and because of the teachers, and because of the administrators, and because of the board, that our kids are doing well. And I just want to thank all of them. And if we could join together just in a round of applause for our community, which we love, and for all of the work that goes into making this district what it is. Thank you. So this concludes the formal portion of this evening's forum. On behalf of the Sauk Prairie Education Association and the Sauk Prairie Optimist Club, I thank you for all participating. If you have any additional questions of the candidates, please stay and talk with them personally. They'll appreciate that interaction with you. Also remember that the 2024 spring election and presidential preference vote is Tuesday, April 2nd, and the polls are open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. For more information on your voter registration, on polling locations, on races, ballot questions, appropriate voter ID, and early or absentee voting, go to myvote.wi.gov. And finally, we want to put in a plug for the Optimist Club Spring Election Spaghetti Dinner. That is at the Riviera Bowl on Election Day, on every Election Day, from 4 until 7, or until they sell out. So you might want to get there no later than 6. But this is a drive-through pickup only event. It's only drive-through, right, this year? There is some seating available, and if it's a beautiful day, maybe out on the benches. Yeah. So, but to drive through, you can enter north of Ace Hardware. The menu is going to include some delicious spaghetti with meat sauce, and some garden salad, some bread twists, and, note here, a yummy dessert. So we look forward to that. Every dinner that you purchase goes to the scholarship fund for our Sauk Prairie students. So even if you're going to buy, if you only have one mouth to feed, buy 2 or 3. Okay? That would be great. Thank you all for attending this evening.